Good morning. Welcome on this Monday morning into our Facebook Live. My name is Helen Jennings and I'm coming to you live from Northamptonshire in the UK, as I do every Monday morning where I possibly can. So this week we're going to be looking at the Honey Bee Bundle. I've had a really busy weekend. I had a bit of an open house and I had a couple of people pop in because I'm busy sorting out all my retired items, things that I've had up for sale before, things that I've still got, and some new things I wanted to add in. So I will be adding those in to my special Facebook group of retired stuff. And when I get round to doing that, I will add a link on here, and if you're anywhere in the UK and would like any of that sent out to you, then you can comment and we can arrange that. So look out for that being updated as the week goes on. If you can see my living room, it is covered in retired stamp sets and cards. So I bagged up and labelled all the cards I've got around as well. So I think I now have about a stock of about 700 cards. So likewise, if you're local and want a card, do come and see me. And I'm going to be boxing some of those up. Some people have kindly said they're going to take them into their workplaces and things for me. So if that's something that you think you would like to do, then do get in touch with me again about that. But let's go on to what we're going to be doing this morning. And what we're going to be doing this morning, as I said, is playing with this Honey Bee Bundle. Now this has been a sort of almost quite a surprising little, well, I don't know if it's very surprising. Bees are very on trend at the moment, whether it's because we're worried about them environmentally, I don't know, but bees are very on trend. Obviously, as always, if you are coming on either live or on catch up, do come and say hello. Do pop into the comments and say hello. Let us know how you are, where you're from, and what sort of a day you're having. Do ask any questions, and even if it's not live, I will come back to them and hopefully answer those for you. But the Honey Bee Bundle, so as I say, bees are very on trend, so this has been a really quite popular bundle. And we've got this beautiful stamp set, we've got the coordinating dies, and then as part of celebration, I may be wobbling you in a minute because I did actually forget to grab the celebration papers because I don't need them this morning. Let's see how far I can go without losing my wire. That's it. Grabbed them from afar, and there is also a pack of the celebration papers. Actually, that one, oh, it is opened. So here are the papers. So this is an item, as always with celebration, spend £45 and you get to choose an item for free, and these papers are one of the things that you can choose for free. And of course, what doesn't show up particularly well in the little celebration brochure is the fact that these have got gold foiling on them. You've got gold foiled bees there. You've got black and white on the back, so there's black and gold stripes, and this pretty just black and white floral print, black and white sort of stitching, high div, and these lovely flowers. And of course, there is absolutely no reason why you can't take your pens and colour in your black and white images if that's what you want to do. Or add sponge daubing or all sorts of things. So those are the papers that you can get as a celebration offer at the moment. They are really lovely, but as are the bees and the dies. And there's some really pretty little samples there that's been created, and I was a bit hard pressed this morning as to which one to choose. I've actually gone for a relatively simple one. I've actually gone for this one. I say relatively simple, it looks sort of relatively simple there. I like that colourway with the mint macaron and the pretty peacock. I was also quite taken with the little sample at the front in the bundle index. That's really pretty, and that really shows off some of the dies that you get with this set. So let's have a quick closer look at these stamps and dies. I love the way that this one is curved, wishing you sunshine and happiness, because that obviously curves beautifully around this hive just here. The font's really pretty in this, celebrate every moment. You've got this lovely detailed bee down here, and you do get this shading on the wings. 2 flowers, one going one way, one going the other. Another little bee, thank you, hello. So really thinking of you, sweet friend. Obviously very appropriate with honey. So really pretty stamp set, and the dies are lovely. You get a really detailed bee, you get an outline bee, that means you can cut out your stamped image there. You get your flowers, you get one going one way, one going the other, because obviously that's correlates with the stamps. You get this little pair of hearts. There's your other bee, here's your hive, and here is just a honeycomb die. Not just, because it's really useful. You can either sit it behind the gap that you've cut with your hive, or you can use it for all sorts of embellishments and things on the sides of cards. So really nice die set, great stamp set, fabulous bundle. And that bundle, shut my catalogue now, that wasn't helpful, was it? So it's actually a very well priced bundle. So the dies are normally £24, the stamp set's normally £19, and you can get the bundle of 2 of them at 10% off at £38.50. So a good morning, Valerie, a good priced bundle. So let's have a little look and see what we can do with this pile of cardstock and ink pads, the stamps and dies that I have here. Let's start off by creating a card base. I'm going to open up my trimmer and make sure that this piece of card that I grabbed is indeed 21 centimetres wide. Yes, it is. So that means it's a bit bigger than 14.9 that way. So let's trim it down to 14.9 that way. So we've got a 14.9 centimetre that way, 21 centimetres that way, and we are going to score it straight down the middle at 10.5. So there we have our card base. I'll pop that away for a moment. The other thing we want is we want to be able to cut this front panel just here, and that's actually been cut using the stitched rectangle dies. So let me grab the stitched rectangle dies. These are just one of those go-to, so very, very useful collections of dies, obviously made up of a whole load of stitched rectangles. And we're going to go not for the largest one, we're going to come down a size. Hi Angie! We're going to come down to this size just here, and we're going to cut ourselves a piece of pretty peacock cardstock. That's sitting there. Yes, let's trim that down a little bit. Ooh. I do apologise, I've just caught the edge of one of my lamps with the edge of my trimmer. We'll cut that to 10 centimetres, and then that will give us a piece that is big enough for our stitched rectangle. So let's bring in our die cutting machine. Obviously it doesn't matter what make of die cutting machine you've got, our dies will work with them. I've still got my trusty Big Shot here. Wind that through. Let's be aware that the other side of that Big Shot is a cup of tea. Let's not, hi Jedge, let's not knock the tea flying with the Big Shot. That is not the way to start a Monday morning. So let's just peel that off. Now these double stitch dies do really cling on to the card. They don't want to easily let it go, but that's because you've had these 2 lines of stitching all around the edges. So we've got our lovely stitched rectangle there that we're going to use on our card front. Let's file that piece of card in the recycling bin. So this then will sit on the top there like that. As always, the we always case the catalogue on a Monday morning. We choose an item from the catalogue and recreate it. But as always, the samples in the catalogue are all US sizing. So here we have the UK, European, I think Australian sizing. So they may look slightly different in terms of dimension when you come to put them together. But that's why that is. It's because the dies are standard, but the card sizing is slightly different across the world. So, but I don't think it will make too much difference, really. Right, we're going to take from our stamp set, we're going to take this floral, this little flowery stamp. And I don't think it will matter particularly which one we take. I think we'll go with this one. Let's find a little block to put that on. Are you big enough? I think I'm going to go up a size. We'll go to the C block. That's better. And we're going to take some Pretty Peacock ink. We're going to go tone on tone with this. And we're just going to stamp these flowers. Really pretty flowery stamp. You've got sort of like the main flower, excuse my stays on ink on there, a big flower and a small little flower on there. I need to get my stays on cleaner out and attack that. So all we're going to do is randomly stamp those flowers across that background, creating our own sort of, not quite DSP, but let's come off the edge a little bit. That always gives it a sense of it's been cut from a bigger piece. Have just a little something coming in that corner. So there we have our tone on tone stamped background. So it's like sort of a pretty wallpaper almost sort of effect on there. And that will go onto our card base in a little while. Now let's concentrate on our bees and our beehive. So I'm going to grab the beehive stamp, and I want a bigger block again for that one, and some white Whisper White cardstock. And this time we're going for the mint macaron. So those are the sort of two main colours in this card, are Pretty Peacock and mint macaron, and I thought that was quite a nice combination, excuse me. So let's ink up our beehive stamp with our mint macaron, and we will stamp that. Fabulous. Fabulous, darling. Right, and we're going to need to cut that out in a minute, but we'll hold fire because we've got some other things we're going to need to cut out. So what we are going to need is some flowers and some bees. Now I'm going to stamp the two bees on here, and I'm going to use my Saddle Brown Stays On to stamp my bees. If you haven't come across our Saddle Brown Stays On, obviously it is made by Stays On. It is a Stays On that you can get anyway, but we've added it to our collection because it is really so useful to have a colour, a sort of basic colour that you can stamp backgrounds in, that you can watercolour on, all those sorts of things, but so useful to have one that isn't black, because you don't always want black. I'm just looking just here in the background here, I've got a little piece that was left over from the watercolour pencil class we did, so I've stamped those little girls in the brown there, and it just gives it a slightly softer finish on them. So we're going to stamp our little bees in brown. You can see that is really quite a solid, it's a new ink pad, you can always tell, can't you? Let's have a look, see. I think that's slightly better. I'm going to stamp them off. There. because it is just such a solid, good look. That is a really solid bee, isn't it? I think that's a bit too much. So we've stamped him off, and that gives it that sort of almost yellowy bee colour. Excellent. So let's pop our lid back on there, because even though it is a brown, stays on ink, all the same rules apply. You clean off your stamps as quick as you can, and you put your lid back on, because it's solvent based and it will evaporate. So on there we've got a hive and we've got 2 bees. Now we also need to do some flowers. I'm going to grab another piece of card, and the other thing I'm going to grab for this is my Stamparatus. Now obviously we could have done all of our stamping on our Stamparatus, but because I'm going to be adding in a couple of different colours to these flowers, my Stamparatus is going to be invaluable. So let's have a look. I only need the 1 plate. I don't need my template that I've created. I'm going to tuck that behind there. I don't need my sponge mat. Let's take that out. I will leave my grid paper in there. I have actually treated myself to one of the new bases, the new sponge bases with grid on, but I've actually not even unpacked that yet and started playing with it. Now what have I just done? It always has to be done, doesn't it, that if I pick something up, put it down, completely lose sight of it. So what have I done with that piece of white card? Who knows? Let's find a bit more, and we'll no doubt then come to light. Right, so I'm going to put a piece of Whisper white card into the Stamparatus, and we will anchor it down with our magnet, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to bring in my 2 flower stamps. Now I could bring them across to one side, so I'm not wasting quite so much of that card, couldn't I? We don't need to waste all of that card. So I've got my 2 stamps. Hi Megan. Yes, thank you Angie for your reminders. So there we are. I've got 2 stamps now set in that Stamparatus, and I have got some sponge daubers in Pretty Peacock, because I always label my sponge daubers up. So I've got 1 for each colour. So I've got an old olive one there, and I've got a Pretty Peacock one. So I've got little boxes. So the here's my Regal box. So I use the empty boxes, and you can buy these empty boxes. So I've got an empty box. This one is the Regal colours. So in there's a piece of sponge and a sponge dauber for every colour in the Regal colours. And obviously I've got one of those for subtles, for brights, for neutrals, and then a small one. So for the in colours, I have one of the half size ones. So that's the 2019 to 2021. Oh, Angie, that's fabulous news. Sorry, that was a slight just seeing Angie's news. Angie's just said that she's got a new discount shopper joining her team. How brilliant. That's fabulous news. We love to have new discount shoppers, new team members joining our team during this celebration. And obviously for Angie out there in Australia, she has had a new lady join. If anybody here in the UK fancies coming along and getting their starter kit, then do get in touch. I would be equally excited to have new members join my team. I've had 2 during celebration, but I'm always happy to have some more. Right, so we've got our old olive ink pad and our old olive sponge dauber, and we'll need our Pretty Peacock ink pad and our Pretty Peacock sponge dauber. Apologies that I'm knocking you around as I'm opening those up. So what I'm going to do, I think we'll go in with old olive first. I'm going to take my old olive sponge dauber, and I'm going to sponge there. Now I have just caught that small little flower, but I'm not going to be too worried about that because I can go over it with the pretty peacock in a minute. And let's sponge some old olive onto this flower too. I'm going to go back in and add in a bit more colour just to make it slightly darker. And the nice thing about using your Stamparatus is nothing is going to be removed, so you can do that. Let's then come in with our pretty peacock, and we'll add pretty peacock onto our flower heads, and it might go over a bit onto the leaves, but that's really quite pretty. I'm going to do another little layer on there. Just to make that a little bit darker. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to, oh no, I don't want that colour. Let's just wibble that off. I'm actually going to print up some pretty peacock on my dauber. I'm going to dab it off a little bit onto my scrap paper. And I'm just going to infill a bit of that colour. This will be die cut in a minute. I'm just going to put a bit of dab of colour on the top of there. So there we have our two flowers. Move those flowers off of there for now. So we have got a hive, 2 bees, 2 flowers, 2 bees or not 2 bees. That is the question. So we need to die cut those now. Let's pop that out of the way. Let me grab my dies again. And we are going to need the die that cuts the hive, the die that cuts the little bee, and the 2 dies that cut the flowers. Where's the other one? It's dropped into my basket. So obviously we're going to need to come through a second run in order to get that second bee, but that's okay. The other thing I will grab is the magnetic base plate for my die cutting machine, because that will just help to hold those dies in place as we run it through. Let's bring back in our die machine. Magnetic base plate. Let me close up this ink pad before I rest a hand in it or something. So magnetic base plate, 1 plastic plate, and then let's grab our stamped images. Just going to grab a pair of scissors and snip that off. There we go. Okay, so flower number 1. Line that up. And then flower number 2, we'll line that up. And with this new style of dies, you literally are lining up a stamped image with the outside of that die. You do still get a border with it, but from this side you're literally lining up that stamped image. With the die, and then just turn that round and we'll have a play, because with the magnetic base plate you do sometimes get a little section that will ping like that one did, and that is just because of the magnets underneath, the alignment of the magnet. So we'll do this one and then we can come back and fiddle with the placement on that other one to get the magnet to pick it up properly. So we're going to better run those all through. Hi Gwyn and Glenda. Now let's just pop these out. So we have 2 flowers, yet put a magnetic sheet on my bee dies. I need to get that done. So it does mean that it hangs on to them a bit better. We have our hive. Oh, and that's wiggled. Oh, you little monkey. But we should be able to trim that up and to do something with that little bee. If not, I will stamp another one. It is, after all, just the tiniest piece of card that has gone to waste if we decide that that bee, see, that's what it's done, it's jumped, that bee won't work for us. The bees are being tricky. Right, I'm watching you, bee. I think I am quickly going to stamp another bee, just because it is a sort of, it's not one that I can necessarily tuck behind something else. Sometimes you can get away with that, and if you can tuck something when you're arranging your card, then you can get away with things like that. Let me just find, no, you're just want a little oddment of card. So I'm going to stamp him off before we stamp him on there, and then we will run him back through the machine. Need you to be a well-behaved little bee. Put the lid on, that stays on. Grab my other base, my other acrylic plate. Hold that in place. Right, run that through, hopefully. That's better. I'm sorry, little bee, but if you can't behave yourself, you won't be allowed to come and play on our card. Okay. The last thing that I need to do is to grab some linen thread . And how much do I want? Just enough to come round the beehive and tie a bow. So I think we'll go with about that much. It's about that much, people, which it looks as if it might be. I was going to say about 12 inches, 30 centimetres, but it's a bit over. More like 13 inches or about 34 centimeters, something like that is how much about that piece of linen thread is. And then we're going to take our Stays On ink again, and we're just going to make it a bit darker. We're going to stain it. I'm going to take a piece of kitchen towel. The other thing I'm going to do is grab, let's have a look. Let me just find, sorry people, I've just knocked a whole load of punches on the floor. The world hasn't quite fallen to pieces, it just sounded like it is. So I'm going to grab this bit of sponge and I'm just going to help to hold that down as I run it through. That stays, and I don't know how well that's going to come out, but here's what colour it is to start with. Here's what colour it is after you've run it through your Stays On ink pad. It just makes it sort of a, well, brown, funnily enough. We'll put that to one side for a moment. Ah, there you are. Little cover. Put our cover on. I'll leave that there for a minute because that can be drying off. It won't take too long because it is alcohol based Stays On ink, so it won't take long to dry. Obviously I could have done that with any of the coloured inks as well. A darker ink, a lighter one perhaps wouldn't show quite so much, but so I've put foam pads on the back of this stitched, stamped rectangle just to raise it up a little bit. Make it a little bit 3D. Obviously, if you were wanting to pop this in the post, you might be better off just leaving it as a flat card. Or at least that section is a flat card, and it would be a really good idea to try and make that so that it goes on there a little less wonky than that. There we go. So we have our stamped background piece on our plain Pretty Peacock piece. We're going to take our stained piece of linen thread to make it so that it's fairly even on that side, about like that. What I am going to do is I'm just going to get a piece of tape and just anchor that down on the back there. You see it's not quite dry because we are still getting some lines. So if you were doing this at home, you'd be better off doing that a bit earlier on and leaving it to completely dry before you went to put your card together. But we are just going to tie that across there. All fingers and thumbs this morning. Has that gone through? Yes. There, with a nice bow on that side. And then we'll put some dimensionals on the back of here. And we'll put our little hive on. And obviously the mess on the back doesn't matter. What's on the back stays on the back. Nobody will ever be any the wiser. So it doesn't matter that we've got some brown lines and a bit of tape. So we'll put that fairly central in our background just there. And then we've got our little, oh, I've got one other thing that I needed to die cut. We'll do those in a minute. We're going to take some little bees and we'll have one just here. And we'll have one coming up here from the bottom. And then we've got our flowers. And we'll put a couple of dimensionals on the back of there. Hopefully we'll squeeze one in there without it showing. Yes, that looks as if that's going to be fine. And this one obviously is coming round, curving round this side. And this other one is going to curve around this side, trying to make that so that they start in about the same place and the same sort of distance from the hive. Oh, apologies. I'm going to grab a piece of Whisper White card and dig into the honeybee stamp set and just find a really cute little hello. I love the little font on this. And we're also going to grab the pretty peacock ink. Hello. Now that's gone down on a bit of an angle, so hopefully I've managed to follow the angle of that with my scissors. There we are. We have a little, thank you Angie, there's a little hello. Hello. Then we'll put a couple of glue dots, not glue dots, dimensionals on the back of there. And we'll tuck that in like that. And then let's get rid of that dimensional backing. That is not necessarily an embellishment we want on our card. Last but not least, I'm just going to take all of my scrap bits of card I put into these Polly Pockets. I've just got loads of them. Oh, that's really lovely thing to be doing, Angie, making cards for nursing homes. Right, I'm going to dig about in the dies and I'm going to find that little pair of heart dies that are just here. And then again, grab my big shot. Just run that through. Let's lift those onto the corner of that card so we know where they are. And we're going to put a dimensional. These are really lovely because they are actually, I don't know how much you'll pick these up, but that little heart, is that camera going to be able to? Ooh, possibly not. It's going to go, no, I'm not picking that up, that's too tiny. These are actually sort of like, there's an embossed line around the outside of these, which makes them really pretty. So I've just done with that dimensional, there it is. So I'm going to pop a dimensional on the back of that. Make sure it's tucked out of the way. And take my snips and just shave a little bit off the edge of that. I'm going to put that heart just there. It almost seems a shame to leave this little heart. I might put it down on that greeting. I'm thinking possibly a glue dot. Let's make sure I've got it the right way round. And pick up a glue dot. And I think we'll have a second little heart down there. It seems a shame to leave that behind, doesn't it? Having cut it out. So there we go. There was the original in the mini catalogue. And here is ours. Really pretty. Obviously that's going to need an insert in there, so I shall put an insert in there and probably stamp a couple of little bees on it or something. But that's really sweet. Haha, bit of a pun there on the honey theme, but it is a lovely stamp set, and if you go on to Pinterest and start searching on there for things that people have made with this, there's some really gorgeous things out there. And obviously quite a lot of people have also brought in that celebration paper, and we will endeavour to do that on Thursday when we come in, and when we'll be creating some things out of our own heads, which is both exciting and nerve-wracking and dangerous all at the same time. But before Thursday, the sun is shining at the moment here. Enjoy what's left of your day. Enjoy your whole day if you're here in the UK. Enjoy the rest of the week, and I will be back to see you on Thursday.